middle of the night, the Pittsburgh Steelers say, hey, we got a deal done. Russ, in epic fashion, I got to say, tweets out the video of Renegade playing Oh Mama. It goes from black to the terrible towels. Your reaction when you saw the deal get done, especially for $1.2 million?
Yeah, for the first time in my life, or the first time since I was like 12 years old, I went to bed at 11 o'clock at night, and that clearly was a mistake. I wake up in the morning, I roll over, I look at my phone, and I'm still trying to pry my eyes open when I see tweets about Russell Wilson.
Yes.
It was crazy. I feel like we expected it for a while, to be quite honest. I mean, after he made the Steelers his first like real official meeting, I feel like it was kind of predetermined from there. It was destined, or it felt like this thing was pretty much locked in. It's immediate reaction. I'm pretty willing to call it a slam dunk. Like, I don't see a downside to this. He's signing for a vet minimum. This is a guy who can raise their ceiling. He doesn't lower their floor. There's an easy way out if this doesn't work out, because he's only making $1.2 million. And it still, I think, leaves the door open for Kenny Pickett if you still think he's the guy. They have so many options. This gives the Steelers, I think, a higher probability of going further in the playoffs and reaching a little bit higher. I don't really see a downside, quite frankly, to this signing. I mean, it's a risk in terms of, well, maybe it doesn't work out, but I mean, that's the same with any free agent signing or any quarterback addition. I mean, and I think I think a lot of people are going to look at this and say, is Russell Wilson capable of competing with the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons of the AFC? And look, like Russell Wilson probably isn't an elite guy at this point, but I don't know. It's better than any other option the Steelers had, to be quite honest with you. Unless you wanted to dump a bunch of money into Kirk Cousins, this is probably the best that you got right now.
100%. To sign anybody for $1.2 million, especially a veteran, a guy who, I mean, he threw for 3,000 yards and 26 touchdowns a year ago. He's not a bad option for how cheap that is. For one, it shows that he's ready to win a Super Bowl, which is serious. Like, that's it goes from, the Steelers are hunting for a veteran, but what is this veteran's MO? And, is Russ still the guy? Is he looking to take on whatever to win? Yes, Russ is just looking to win. That is all he cares about. He 100% said, look, I'm going to make $40 million this year, whether the Steelers pay me or nobody pays me, doesn't matter. I'm going to try to win a Super Bowl. He believes that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a team to try and win a Super Bowl. I think that speaks volumes. I think it's the perfect move for both sides. I think when you look at it, I mean, going to visit the Giants, I looked at that and said it's almost a Kenny Pickett, but it's not quite a Kenny Pickett because Daniel Jones is already signed to a pretty large deal. They're going to view him as the starter and just say, hey, Russ is the guy. In Pittsburgh, I mean, Adam Schefter said it this morning, Russell Wilson views himself as the starter. I don't think that that's going to be handed to him. What I have been told is that the Pittsburgh Steelers spoke with Kenny Pickett prior to even pursuing Russell Wilson, that they had a meeting with him. The words that I got to describe Kenny Pickett in that scenario is a quote-unquote true professional about the situation. They said, hey, look, we still believe in you. We still believe that you could be our starter, and they expect Kenny Pickett to take a leap forward in year 3 enough to win the job. But he does have to win the job. We said it before. We said it on Friday that the Steelers don't view Russell Wilson as a definite starter. I still do not believe that they do. But obviously, you're going to come in here and you're going to get a competition, and Russ believes he's going to win it. And you got to some degree, look at that and say, if you had to stack those two up, they probably are, or he probably is going to win it. You look at this, the big question that comes with it, the giant question that comes with this. Who gives the Pittsburgh Steelers the best shot to win? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Kenny Pickett? And do you believe that the competition is going to be a true competition? This is not a Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett competition, a Mason Rudolph versus whoever over the years competition. Is this a real competition? And who do you believe gives the Steelers the best shot to win in 2024?
I do think it'll be a real competition because I don't think either of these guys have anything. That's the wrong way to put it. Russell Wilson has proven some things, but he is also, 36 years old?
35, 36, yeah.
They're 35. He'll turn 36 this season. And Kenny Pickett hasn't proven much of anything. So I think to that extent, it will be a true competition. I think, you see the upside with a lot of these guys, with both of these guys, but it's whoever proves it, and whoever proves it first, and whoever proves it to a higher degree.
Yep.
I think the Steelers walk into this season with open minds. I think they're going to, who gets the first snap at training camp, I don't think is going to tell you very much. I think it'll end up being Kenny Pickett, but I don't think that's going to stick. I think that'll only be because he, knows the offense, or, knows the system, knows the team. He's been there a little bit longer. I think that's the only reason why. And I think they're going to trade, training camp reps. I think it's going to be a pretty open competition until someone really separates themselves. And I'd have to imagine it drags out pretty long into the summer. With that said, if you ask me to pick a guy right now, it's hard not to go with the 9-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, a guy who's made an All-Pro team before. I think it's Russell Wilson at this point, and I don't. That's not to, like, I think I said it 8 times on the last episode. Like, I don't want to count out Kenny Pickett. I don't want to bury him before he's dead, because there's still a chance he could win that competition. There's a chance that he could take some meaningful steps forward, especially with a new offensive coordinator and a little bit more of a stable situation around him. But, I'm going to go with the guy who I've seen do it, to be quite honest, at this point. And who knows, maybe he falls off a cliff this year. Maybe there's a reason why he's signing for a vet minimum somewhere. But this is a guy Russell Wilson is a guy who's been there and done that. So, and I think he does get a bit of an unfair share of the blame for how things went in Denver. That was clearly somewhat of a dysfunctional environment, and maybe he contributed to it a little bit, but I still think he finished his time in Denver pretty strong, and there's a lot to grab onto there with Russell Wilson still. So I think I'm rolling with him at this point, not having seen either of these guys and, play in the year 2024.
Yeah, I talked to a Broncos source, a Denver insider or someone inside the Denver Broncos organization, and they told me that they don't know what happened in Seattle. They don't know why things got so twisted and why Russ just doesn't have relationships with a lot of those guys that were around. But he looks at Russell Wilson, and there are guys that are actually upset that he's no longer around, and they don't understand how things fell apart the way that they did, because he was very beloved in the locker room. He had his weird incidences with the high knees on the plane and having his own office. But I think some of that, just like you said, got blown up in different ways. Like Kenny Pickett and Minkah Fitzpatrick have an office. They have an office in Pittsburgh. Yeah, they share it. But I think that honestly, if Kenny Pickett wasn't around and he wasn't a first round pick, like if it was Mason Rudolph, who was the quarterback, that would just be Minkah Fitzpatrick's office. Like it would just be Minkah's got an office. He's allowed to go wherever he wants. I don't think that's super out of the ordinary. Guys love him. He's a leader, and again, he had some weird times in Seattle, and like there are some really bad stories, but just from what I have been told out of Denver is that this guy does have a lot of those really good qualities. And from what I've been told from people inside the Pittsburgh Steelers building is that they view Russell Wilson as a guy who is just a true-blooded leader. Like this is the perfect figure of representing the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is exactly what they look for. Guys, we have gear, new merchandise from AST to Muth, Bleed Black and Gold, Kenny to George, and plenty of others now at our new website, blackandgoldapparel.com. And the coolest part, 50% of all profits at our store go to UPMC Children's Hospital here in Pittsburgh to make sure that we are giving back. We can't thank you guys enough, and we want to show you guys how thankful and how grateful we are for everything by making sure that we do our part to make the community here in Pittsburgh better. Go check out everything. We tried to make everything new and improved, from our designs to our quality of sweatshirts and t-shirts and everything else. Let us know and check everything out at blackandgoldapparel.com. And as always, thank you guys for everything. To go on to, is he the best opportunity to win? Is he the best option to win right now? Over Kenny Pickett, if you had to judge right now, today, yes. And I think it's very easy to see. You could lay it all out. Russell Wilson threw for 26 touchdowns last season and 8 interceptions. Kenny Pickett is 14-10 as a starter, has had one multiple touchdown game. I mean, you could look, there's like Tommy DeVito's and all those random quarterbacks who have more or equal passing touchdowns as Kenny Pickett, and things just don't look great. At the same time, he's never had an offensive coordinator. He's kind of bounced around as the starter, started really weird in a spot his rookie season, and then last year dealt with a bunch of injuries, so you just don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe he does take a significant step forward with Arthur Smith, but I think the best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that Russell Wilson comes in here, wins, is really, really good, and returns to the Russell Wilson form that he once was, which I think is a possibility. I'm not going to rule out that he's not. He was in Denver with a terrible, absolutely terrible entire coaching staff. Not even just the offense, the entire coaching staff was awful his first year. He had minimal weapons to throw to. Even his best guys in Cortland Sutton, who was always injured, and Jerry Jeudy, who never really reached the bar that he was going to, don't match up to Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, and hopefully another rookie. The Steelers have a better running game. They have a very quality defense, and they now have a new offensive coordinator. Like, the things are around both of these quarterbacks to go out there and succeed. And I think Russ is going to take more advantage of it. Just like you said, if I had to guess right now who takes the first snap in OTAs, it's going to be Kenny Pickett. Kenny's going to get back there, and he's going to be the first guy to throw a pass to, George Pickens or Deontay Johnson or whoever. And then Russ is going to throw number 2, and people are going to lose their minds about, oh, well, this is, it's Kenny Pickett's job immediately. I don't know if it's going to be. I think Russ gives them the best opportunity. I think the Steelers hope, and this, I've been told something, and what I believe the Steelers actually hope are two different things. What I've been told is that the Steelers want Kenny Pickett to win this competition. They want Kenny Pickett to be the starter and for Russ to be the backup, and they believe that that can happen. What I think the best case scenario for the Steelers is that Russ wins the job. Russ goes on and wins some games and maybe wins a Super Bowl and does whatever craziness that he could possibly pull off. And then Kenny sits behind him, develops, learns, and turns into something better than what he is right now because he finally gets an opportunity to develop behind a veteran that's proven. This was the Steelers' plan his rookie season, and it just didn't work out because Mitch Trubisky wasn't Russell Wilson. Now you get the actual pieces together. I think that works out so much better.
Well, that's interesting. So you think that they are willing to drag out the Kenny Pickett experience for another year, you think, or 2 years down the road? Like, is Russell Wilson really, because if Russell Wilson wins in the way that I think you're describing, like, even if he's not a Super Bowl winner but takes him to the playoffs, wins him a game, something like that, like, why would you not re-sign him? Why would you not run it back with him the year after? Like, but how long do you think they kind of keep Kenny in those plans if Russell Wilson is as successful as he could be?
I think they'd keep him in there for 2 years. I think if Russ proves that he's the starter and he could win this season, he sticks around another year. At that point, he's 37 years old. If he wins a Super Bowl over this time, I think he walks away a champion, And at that point, I think you develop Kenny. After next season, you could pick up his 5th-year option, but you don't even need to. If he doesn't play this year, why would you pick up his 5th-year option next year? Because if he's not going to play next year either, you're going to sign him to a cheap deal. You're going to look at it and just say, we're going to get you for $2 million. But that's the thing, is where is Kenny going to go? Like, if Kenny doesn't play for the next 2 years, nobody's jumping on the bandwagon. Like, there are no other teams in the NFL that are sitting around going, I need Kenny Pickett, man. He's got to be the guy. No, he becomes Russell, or he becomes Mason Rudolph, but a Mason Rudolph that's in a better situation. The Steelers have trust in this guy, unlike they did with Mason Rudolph. The quarterback leading the way likes him, unlike Mason Rudolph and Ben Roethlisberger. I just think that they stick it out at least another 2 years and then give him an opportunity, maybe on a 1-year deal like Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. But I don't think that they'd rush it, and I think that they would. I would think that they would stick with Kenny. At least give him one more shot a couple years down the road to see if he's got it. And then if he doesn't, then you move on. But from that moment, what are your other options? To go out and do this again or to draft another guy? I think they already have an option there.
But I think if you're Kenny, why would you not go somewhere? Like, I think Kenny still kind of views himself as a starter. I think, maybe that changes after a year of sitting behind Russell Wilson. But if you're him, I don't know, why would you stick around in a situation where the Steelers clearly have a guy? Why would you not at least go somewhere where there's a chance that you can
where are you going to go?
I don't know. Things could change. I
just don't think that there's like Mason Rudolph's not going to have an opportunity to start this season. Now that it's not in Pittsburgh.
Really? You don't think
I
so?
don't think so. Where do you think he's going to go and try to start?
I mean, he still could go to like Minnesota. He still could. Who else needs a quarterback? I guess the
Denver,
Bucks
maybe.
just Denver. Trying to think of what the other teams that need a quarterback are.
They're going to land him. Atlanta's going to
He could
land
go to New
Kirk.
England. You
It could go to New England, who just got rid of Mac Jones. You're not wrong there. But New England's going to have a rookie quarterback, and they're going to have one that they favor. I just think
do we know that? Do we know that?
If they don't, they're crazy. But if Kenny finds himself, I mean, maybe somebody'd view him as that, but I just don't think I don't think Kenny's got the resume that teams are going to look at him and say he's going to get an opportunity here. And if that's the case, then I don't disagree with you. If I'm Kenny Pickett, I'm going to try and start somewhere. But from the Steelers aspect of this, I don't think that you give up on him. I don't think that you move on from Kenny Pickett until you're forced to move on from Kenny Pickett. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. But from Kenny's side, I agree with you. If he wants to go start and he has an opportunity, go start.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine Kenny would want to stick around in that situation. And I don't even know if the Steelers would want to either. Like if you're just, I don't know. I don't know why you would hang on to Kenny if he loses another quarterback competition. I guess not another. I mean, he got benched for Mason Rudolph, but that was more of a hot hand type of thing. I don't know if that was a true competition, but if he loses a quarterback competition there, he's in his 4th year. It's not like he's particularly young. Why would you not at that point just go back into the draft or find some other younger quarterback that maybe has a higher ceiling that maybe you don't know something about that could potentially turn into something, another guy that you could develop. I don't know. I think in my mind, and a lot could change over the course of a year, and maybe Kenny shows something during this year that makes me think different. But I think at that point, you've sunk so much into Kenny that it, I don't know, it wouldn't seem worth it in my mind to just run it back with a guy where you pretty much know what you're getting at that point.
Look, I agree. And I think that I agree. If I'm running the Pittsburgh Steelers, I do not see enough in Kenny Pickett right now, and I probably won't this summer to hold on to him long enough to make that worth it. But I just think the easiest, most affordable way to go about it is to view this as, I think there's a chance. I think from what the Steelers have told us to this point, which, again, they've talked out their ass a ton. They've, Mason Rudolph's our guy, Mason Rudolph's our guy, Mason Rudolph's our guy, until Russell Wilson shows up, and then Mason Rudolph ain't our guy anymore. Kenny Pickett's our guy, Kenny Pickett's our guy, Kenny Pickett's our guy, until Russell Wilson shows up, then Kenny Pickett ain't our guy anymore. But everything that they've said is we have a lot of faith in what Kenny Pickett can do and the steps forward and blah, 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 blah. I think right now where we currently stand, the worst case scenario for the Steelers is Kenny Pickett does not win the starting job, and they view him more as a Zach Wilson, which, Zach Wilson didn't work out for the New York Jets, but the Jets thought that Zach Wilson would work out for them with a year or two behind Aaron Rodgers. And I think the Steelers could take that same approach. Is it going to work out? Chances are no. But that's how the Pittsburgh Steelers operate, is they do these things and you kind of see it the whole time. This isn't going to work out. And then it doesn't work out. And then they back themselves into corners, and then they do crazy things like they sign Russell Wilson. So it's just a constant cycle. I agree with you. If I'm Kenny Pickett, I'm getting out of here. There's no chance he gets out of here this year, but next year, maybe I'm asking for a trade and saying, hey, ship me to somebody that wants to at least start me. But I just don't know if you're even going to get that opportunity to start somewhere else. And at that point, instead of going to sit behind Trevor Lawrence like Mac Jones did, maybe you're just accepting, hey, I waited out till Russ retires and hopefully I beat out a rookie and we go from there. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes more sense. And Kenny, I agree. He wouldn't, if he gets beat out by Russell Wilson, he's not getting a chance to start for anyone, but at least, he could go somewhere where it's a little more open, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah, next year, maybe. Definitely next year, maybe. This year, I think Mason Rudolph's going to take that job wherever Kenny possibly should have